Mother of darkness, mother of light, earth beneath us, soul in flight, songs of love and love of life, guide us to our heart. Mother of darkness, mother of light, earth beneath us, soul in flight, songs of love and love of life, guide us to our heart. Mother of darkness, mother of light, earth beneath us, soul in flight, songs of love and love of life, guide us to.
Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me. The songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. I'm being broadcast live tonight on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and on YouTube World. So, hello, YouTube. Um, and if you are listening on YouTube, make sure you do hit that like and subscribe button. I see a handful of folks in there, but only one like. Hit the button. Anyways. No matter how you are hearing me, do make sure you stop in and say hello. And I want to thank you again for joining me here on my spiritual journey. And I hope you want to keep coming back and joining me some more because it's fun. I like seeing y'all here. And the chats, I learn things in the chats. Not always good things, but I learn things. If you want to check out the podcast, by all means, that you can find my show on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, any other place that you might find your podcasts. And then, ooh, look at all those likes. Thanks, guys. And or you can also go to the Etsy shop, and that is www.etsy.com/shop/Monarch Mountain Studio. It's MTN. And then the website is thespacesbetween.live. And if you want to support me through Patreon, that is patreon.com/thespacesbetween. So yeah, that's all of me. And the call line is open, of course. So if you want to call in, share your thoughts or opinions, or have a question, by all means do so. That number is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, it is 44203-393-2871. So yes, lots of fun. Now, I know a lot of people do a Yule challenge of some sort because Yule is coming up. It's on the 21st. I'm probably not going to be one of those people doing a Yule challenge. And honestly, I may be doing a pre-record show on that particular day. I'm not sure. We'll see. Or I might just take you live out to my bonfire. I don't know. I'm hoping to have company for Yule. I've been working with Black Tree and some other local folks, and we're talking about formalizing a circle of our very own. The coffee meetup that we've been doing is Hectic Eclectics in the Sandpoint area, and it's been fun. It's been good. Just not sure that what we're gonna do there either. I'm not sure what we're gonna call our circle. We haven't gotten there yet, so I don't know. we'll see we'll see what there is to see. So tonight, excuse me, is a topic suggested by Bella Luna. She is a patron on the Patreon side, which is pretty super cool. And she had an idea about talking about paths. You know, if you've been a pagan for very long or a witch, often you'll hear people ask you, "Are you left-hand path, right-hand path, LHP, RHP, etc., white witch, black witch, gray witch, all of those things." And often it doesn't make any sense. Some of it flexes, some of it flows, some things cross over, and what is it really? And then I'll give you my 3 cents too, because I have some pretty solid opinions there. Because I do. I mean, that's part of why I'm here. I have an opinion, and I'm telling you all about it. So, if you Google or Bing or whatever your search engine is, if you look it up online or flip open a book to try to figure out what a left-hand path is or right-hand path, you're going to be a little confused because they're not very clear. But generally speaking, the difference between left hand and right hand is the dichotomy between two opposing approaches to magic. So in Western esotericism or new pagan, neo-pagans, it's used among various traditions and groups involving both the occult and ceremonial magic. Now, oddly, because I personally don't like Wikipedia as a source, but this time I found a pretty solid explanation regarding the definition with right hand and left hand. And so the right hand path is ascribed to the characteristics that are associated with groups or traditions that divide the concepts of the mind, body, and spirit into 3 separate but related entities and adhere to a specific moral code or belief in some sort of judgment, like karma or the threefold law, etc. And often they take in and exude energy or light. Left-hand path is generally rejects societal conventions and the status quo as people search for their individual spiritual freedom. And left-hand path followers often embrace practices that are not commonly used, such as sex magic or the use of satanic imagery. They may question religious or moral dogma, and generally value self over a group or society when it comes to their practice. And they generally receive energy rather than putting it out there. And, hold that thought. Excuse me. I sneezed. I suppose that's just the biggest, starkest difference is a right-hand path exudes energy, left-hand path receives it. And if you look at the tarot card or a lot of iconography, you'll see that the right hand is up and the left hand is down. So as above, so as below, pointing down. And it's just the transition of energy. And to be honest, I think a lot of that is because most people are right hand dominant rather than left hand. So again, it's just the visualization, right hand versus left hand. So regarding the left hand path specifically, and if you call in and you have a question or a thought, by all means say something, because I may not see you in the screen. In Eastern mysticism, is any spiritual path that embodies the principle of yin. And it's characterized by passivity and reaching enlightenment by flowing according to one's inner nature, which is opposite of the right-hand path. So in original, like Indian doctrines, for example, it was called the Vamachara. And in the modern Western reinterpretation of paganism and such, left-hand path is any spiritual path which pursues worldly goals and pleasures and is opposed to the spiritual. And so, for an example, my dictionary here gave me an example. It says, in walking the left-hand path, one takes the path of least resistance to achieve goals. That's an interpretation. I don't necessarily agree with it. And a student of the left-hand path in the West, for instance, may perform rites for money or sex, which, again, not 100% sure on that one, because that one's a bit out there for me, but I don't know. So generally, characteristics of the left-hand path would be spiritual liberation or freedom. Utilize. Sorry, it's a laundry day. Left-hand path makes use of sex and rituals and spiritual purposes. They may, and LHP is often the abbreviation here. It may question or reject religious morality and dogmatism. It may value nature and seek to bond with it. The left-hand path is generally regarded as an individual way and is often very, very, very egocentric. So it's generally concentrating on one's own evolution instead of venerating other deities or spirits or the ancestors. Now, generally when we're talking about the left-hand path, we're thinking of traditions or path systems, if you will, like Luciferianism, Satanism, Sethianism, general witchcraft, according to this definition, demonolatry, thelema, paganism, and chaos magic. Now, some of that also crosses over into just its paganism in general. So a lot of, paganistic practices are going to be left hand and right hand. Kind of depends on what you need. So when it comes to the right hand path, it's in Eastern mysticism, or it's any spiritual discipline that embodies the principle of yang, so yin and yang. And it's characterized by conscious effort and striving to expand the student's potential. In such arts, enlightenment is generally reached by self-discipline and some forms of self-denial, such as fasting, to reach altered states of consciousness or altered states of mind. This is often called Dakshinakra in the original Indian doctrines. And basically, it's the opposite of left-hand path, and they really do require knowledge of one's inner self, who you are on the inside, and your thoughts and your own personal mores. In examples, in walking the right-hand path, a student may keep a daily meditation and study schedule, keeping yourself scheduled. And often in the West, magicians of the right-hand path seek to merge their consciousness with that of the universe, so through meditation. Right-hand path traits and characteristics. They generally stick to social customs and avoid taboos or non-accepted behaviors. Will generally adhere to a particular moral system and to a faith in judgment, for instance, the threefold law or karma or something like that. The objective is to build a spiritual relationship with divinity or the spirits or your guides or what have you. The right-hand path is generally altruistic, so it concentrates more on adoration as opposed to personal evolution. Adoration as in not necessarily worshipping, but you're paying attention to the deities and you're giving more value to them. And sometimes the right-hand path may actually reject nature as in the nature spirits and not acknowledge them as individual. Some of the major right-hand path systems are thought to be like Buddhism, esoteric, mystical Judaism, Islam, a lot of the New Age belief systems, Christianity, Wicca, Neo-Paganism, Druidism, and Theosophy. Blah. Cannot talk. I don't know what it is about some of these words. I tell you, you get 4 or more consonants in something, and I just stumble all over the place. So, that's just some general characteristics of the two different paths, left hand, right hand. And, let's see. Now, Another association that we often come across when it comes to right hand path or left hand path is that of white or black magic. And often those that are associated with the right hand path are considered practicing white magic, and those of the left hand path are those practicing black magic. So, what is it? Well, white magic is generally considered very spiritual, and it's seen to, or generally seen to be, the use of magic for others. Is often very selfless and for benevolent purposes. And those who practice white magic may be considered wise men or wise women, maybe healers, soothsayers, that kind of thing. And black magic is generally seen to be the use of supernatural powers or magic for selfish or evil purposes, and is often considered malicious. Now, other practitioners consider themselves to be gray witches, meaning that they are a combination of both. They do, whatever is needed at the time. So, centuries ago, Christian forces very intent on dominating pagan cultures labeled anything that was non-Christian as black magic. And those who had held respected roles in their communities as soothsayers or sorcerers before the church began its crusade eventually became thought of in those very negative terms and were blamed for all sorts of things that went wrong, like crop failures, death of farm animals, things that ironically in the insurance world are considered act of God. So just an irony and a funny thing. And women in particular, of course, were accused of summoning demons and unleashing evil forces on their neighbors. And it was believed that there were those who performed curses for hire. And these people then became known as witches, and they were thought to have great, albeit evil, powers and very little or no moral conscience. And if people were thought they were the victim of a curse, for instance, they would seek out a white witch, also known in some areas as the cunning folk, who would work a counterspell to lift the curse. And then same with bad luck, including illnesses and injuries, were often considered the result of someone else's black magic, and then you'd need the white magic to reverse it. So I could see where some of the PR campaign could be really easily, someone saying, "Oh, hey, I'm a white witch. I can get rid of this curse." I can see it as being not quite so white and more black, because you're preying on their thoughts, their imagination often, and not really rooted in reality. It's just their interpretation. Now, superstition was generally taken a lot more seriously before science became more of a thing, and medicine evolved enough to offer a rational explanation for a lot of stuff. And so, the superstition was often very much enhanced by the Christian church, and so there's all sorts of crazy stories about witches turning people into toads and boiling children, etc. So a lot of the stuff that was black magic was actually just misconceptions. So, of course, today's pagans are often, far more enlightened about the nature of magic in general, and it's understood by most of society that the old myths about witches are just that. They're myths, they're fiction, that's not real, that didn't actually happen. However, the notion of black magic is something that is very much alive and is embraced actually by a lot of today's witches and pagans, who are not necessarily using it for evil purposes. And they're seriously not. For example, a Wiccan would certainly put a curse or a hex in the black magic category, but a non-Wiccan might argue that this particular type of spell work would be really important for like self-defense or protection against people who might cause them harm. And so they're not necessarily doing magic to burn someone's house down or make someone sick, but they're just trying to protect themselves. Now, gray magic is often considered very practical magic. It's also considered neutral magic, and it's magic that's not performed specifically for a beneficial reason, but it's also not focused towards something that's completely hostile. So it's also seen as falling in a continuum kind of between the white and the black. And there's generally three keys to gray magic. You need to have a positive attitude, you need to how to generate and control magical energy, and you need to have the knowledge to do it. And there's actually a lot of information about gray magic out there, and there's a couple of different techniques for magic in general that cross all of everything, but are specific to gray magic. And a lot of people come to magic because they watch Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something like that, and so they want to know more about it. And often they come into gray magic first, as understanding they will focus their practice from there. Excuse me. Now, black magic is generally considered negative magic because you're taking energy away. And seriously, there was not a lot of resources when it came to black magic and what it might be, and what it is. At least not online. I do have some books that go into it a fair bit, but that's just didn't have a lot of time to read today. So basically, black magic is the branch of magic that is generally considered to be used to perform evil magic or something that draws malevolent powers. And the first thing you do need to understand that the person who is casting the spell or doing the work, whatever it is based upon their own personal intention. So if someone is wanting to manifest something positive, they're probably going to be doing white magic, because a lot of folks that are doing white magic, they don't want to harm someone. And black magic is generally performed by people who are trying to hurt someone or don't really care who might suffer, for what they're trying to do. Now, can black magic be used against a good person? Yeah, absolutely. But it may not work. Because if you're basically a good person and following the right path, and you're not wallowing in misery, I suppose, and you're like fear or guilt or shame, then you're not going to be very susceptible to black magic. Because if you're resonating in that frequency of love, and joy, and compassion, that negativity that's brought around by dark magic or dark spellcasters is just going to kind of bounce off your psychic shields, generally speaking. Now, that's a lot of information, and that's kind of the way most everybody believes right now in our current era of paganism and witchcraft. And I kind of believe differently. To be honest, I don't feel that there is a left-hand path or right-hand path. I don't feel that there is black magic or white magic or gray magic. It is the path, and it is just magic. Really, it is your intention, and I'll go into it more after the break here in a bit. That has more to do with the results you're going to receive when you're doing ritual work or magic of any kind. And Naysay just asked it, does it depend upon the caster? When it comes to intent, what is it you're setting your intent to do or accomplish? That has a lot to do with it. Some people are out there just looking to hurt people in general. They're just bad people, whether they practice magic or not. So I don't know. I guess I'll go into that a little bit more after the break. So before we get there, the Patreon is up and running, folks. So if you want to check it out, please do so. I've got 5 different tiers available. The cheapest one is $1 per month, and it gets you into the Patreon site. You can access pretty much everything. The next level up is $5, I believe, and then you get access to the the stuff that's also custom to the website only. If you want to check out the levels, please do so. Again, the Patreon is Patreon or www.patreon.com/the spaces between. Check it out. If you have any questions, ask me. If there's something in there that's you think isn't necessary or I should add something more, please let me know. Also, the website is up. I just have been editing and playing with that a bit today, so it's the spaces between .live. And I've got most of my storefront into the website now. There's some custom stuff that's still showing up on Etsy just because it's the better marketplace for it. Some of those handcrafts, I suppose. But that's just kind of the way I've got it set up. I do custom embroidery, so if you wanted something done specifically, I'll be doing a pendulum mat for a friend of mine later. So it's got to be kind of in the pagan theme. I'm not gonna just whip out a race car or something for you. That's not my gig. So the pagan or witchcraft type thing. Yep, that's my gig. That's my jam. And so yeah, I don't mind designing things, but it does there's going to be some cost involved if you want something designed in a custom fashion. So send me an email, wildpaisley@gmail.com. That's WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. And also check out the podcast. So I'm seeing some action and activity in all of those places, so I appreciate you guys doing and checking that out. And then we just had the new moon just passed, so I hope you had your intentions set, and we'll talk about the full moon and the manifesting of the full moon as we come and approach Yule and such here in just a bit. So break is coming up. I will pick up talking about the path and everything and my interpretation of it afterwards. So we shall see you shortly. And if you got a question, drop it in the chat or give me a call. I'll see ya in just a few.
Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me the songs of Mother Goddess and of Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are still adventuring in the spaces between. And Don Longbeard has joined us.
What? Who?
Yeah,
Who?
yeah.
Is that me?
That
Is my
bearded
mic
guy.
on?
Yeah, it
My-
is over here.
Is this on?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, there
there
it
you
is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, mostly because for the second half of the show, I'm going to be talking about my personal interpretation,
Opinion.
my opinion. Often he has peanut gallery comments, so I figured, well, we'll just turn on the mic so he can hear me and he can
Thanks.
say things.
Peanut gallery comments.
Well, that's what they are. So, the first half of the show, I talked about the different paths, left hand, right hand, and white magic, black magic, that kind of thing. And for me, my interpretation is there's just one path. It is the path. It is the pagan path. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not doing some left hand path type work or right hand path type work, because occasionally you are. Because really, truly, we're people. We do things, and often what we need at any one particular time is going to vary. And sometimes we need to work on ourselves and what's internal, our thoughts, our feelings, and what we have to deal with. And other times we're working on things for other people. So it's a bit of both. And same with magic. It really is your intention. What is your intent? That's why I talk about setting your intention before you do any kind of casting or ritual or spell work or anything like that. You are gonna, you meditate on it, you think about it before you do anything. You gotta think about it. Meditate. Make sure this is what you really want to accomplish. Because sometimes your subconscious will actually set the intention of what you're doing rather than your consciousness, because you're not in tune with yourself.
I heard you talking because I was driving back out of the show.
You left Brent's, yeah.
Yes, left Brent's, left the Portal studio, and I was listening. You brought up, of course, the left-hand path and right-hand path, and the differences between the two. One is more ego, one is more selfless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are definite definite division between the two, simply because there are the people that serve only their ego, and there are people that try to be altruistic. Now, altruism is a tough thing to achieve, because even tucked in your psyche away from everything else, there's something that you want from this particular thing. So I don't truly believe anybody can be altruistic. However, it's, as you say, the intention, putting it out there. Then, whether you believe in the threefold law or not, karma's still a bitch. If you put out negative, you get back negative. Now, that's not necessarily believing that, a threefold path or whatnot. It's just, energy attracts energy. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you put out good energy, hopefully you receive back good energy. You put out negative energy, you get turned into a newt. But I got better.
But you got better. And I think what you look for is what you're going to receive more than anything. So if you're looking for the negatives in people all the time, that's absolutely what you're going to receive, is the negatives from people, the bad stuff.
Right.
But if you're looking for the positives in people or in the world or your situations, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You're really going to see and find what you are looking for, what you're seeking.
Well, even though, that bad energy can come around, we have all had that one person in our life, whether it be a friend, an associate, whatever, that was kind of cool to begin with, but then you realize that, this is just not necessarily a bad guy, but it's energy I don't need. or something that happens. It's like, okay, I did this good thing, happened, but it has bad. It doesn't have bad, but it has negative connotations or negative results. Like winning that brand new car. Yeah, the car is free, but you still got to pay the taxes. It's always that surprise, that thing in the back that's sitting behind, waiting to surprise you.
That's
And
the unintended consequences.
unintended consequences. Very good.
So, in the past, I've talked about the intended consequence of any casting ritual or spell or anything like that. You have this thing that you're doing with, you expect this is your consequence, or this is what's going to
Right.
happen. Well, the flip side of that same coin is there's the unintended consequence. How many people out there want to win the lottery? Quite a few of them.
Right.
Well, the unintended consequence of winning the lottery and having suddenly
Paying taxes on
lots
it.
of millions is you suddenly have more relatives than you know what to do with.
Right.
And everybody has their hand out. And, that's the unintended consequences. People say, oh, well, you didn't earn that. You should just give it away.
Right,
And that's
right.
really not the way it is.
Those are the altruistic people.
Yeah.
Those are the people that think that, what you have, you haven't earned it, therefore you need to be altruistic and give it away. Those are the altruistic people.
You see, for me, that's not so much altruism as it's self-sacrifice. And I see
If
that
you do it willingly, but if somebody is telling you that that's the altruistic path, it's not very altruistic.
Well, yes, it's not. That's actually one of my biggest problems with Christianity in general.
Huh?
Yeah, is the assumption and demand that you will sacrifice yourself and put everybody else before you. I mean, that's how I grew up. I had no value. It was the family unit had the value.
Right.
And so trying to do anything for myself really was seen as being very selfish. And sometimes you really do have to stop and take care of yourself. And, there's the adage, an empty cup. You can't pour water out of an empty cup. So if you don't stop and take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else.
And that, I think that a lot of people forget that, I mean, if you don't have if you aren't healthy, let's just say that, in whatever way that is, you are in no position to give anything. So, it's that skewed idea that the more you give, the more you get. Well, but if you give everything, you have nothing for yourself, and you're not a healthy individual. However, when we're talking about left and right hand path, we're talking about, in my opinion, and these are of course my opinion, the way I see things, I would not say I am either, because I'm not a very ritualistic person. I mean, I have things that have to be done certain ways, but that's just the way I live my life. And it may be called a ritual, if you want to call it that. I mean, dishes go in the cupboards where the dishes go. The spoons don't go where the knives go, that kind of thing. That's just keeping your house in order, literally. But that also goes for your spirituality, I think, I fully, and every time you say it, I absolutely agree. It's the intention behind the action or the thought or the energy that's put out there. And I don't necessarily think that I travel either path. I mean, because as far as I'm concerned, you what did you say earlier? You used the word, it starts with an A. Anyhow, you sell it. So if something good happens to me, and I don't know, I'm not one that necessarily has a patron. So, honor is equally divided unless something happens and that this particular patron or this particular energy, this particular power, bequeathed it upon you. Then, you pay them adage. That was it. You pour a little out for the homies, whatever that may be. Burn some sage or burn some, whatever that is. Just give them a little something back or just say thank you. And that can be both good and bad. I mean, because sometimes we need to have challenges put in front of us And those challenges aren't always fun. They're not always rewarding, but there's a reward that you get having gone through that trial. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So, personal philosophies. I feel that you are the sum of your existence to date.
Certainly.
So, whatever choices you've made, experiences you've had, things you've learned, the stuff you've done, that has gone into creating the you are today. Now, if you don't like the you are today, then you need to change something
Right.
to be, closer to the you that you think you should be. With that, excuse me, if you change something, how often have you been said that, hey, you go back in time, is there anything you would change to get a different outcome? And I have to say, nope. I kind of like who I am today. Why would I change anything? Because I am the sum of my experiences, 100%.
Right.
And then as far as I think it's just the path. Sometimes you're going to work on your self-care and you need more energy. You need to do, work on yourself more.
Right.
And
so you take that energy as opposed to giving it.
Exactly. And sometimes you're going to come across someone who needs the energy more than you do, so you give it to them.
Right.
And I don't really feel as altruistic in the slightest. I think it's just part of being real. Sometimes I have more energy than others, so I have no problem at sharing that energy.
Right.
I wish I had a 5-year-old I could tap and drink like a Red Bull, but holy cow.
Oh, no.
Because toddlers have more energy than, any caffeine drink ever. Unless it's a toddler on caffeine, but that's a different story.
It's like Hammy.
Right.
Here, drink this.
Yeah, exactly. So, just like I don't feel that there's, black magic, gray magic, or white magic. It's just magic.
Right.
Because really, it's your intention. Protecting yourself or protecting your home. Like, if you have a family that you want to protect, you're not really protecting yourself necessarily. You're protecting your family.
Because you're putting yourself in the way.
Exactly.
To do the protecting.
Yeah. Or if you're going in to cleanse a home, because sometimes you do need to go in and do banishings or cleansings and that kind of thing. Banishing a spirit or entity from a home because they're malicious isn't, to me, isn't black magic. That's you're taking care of the property or the home or the item or the folks that live there. So
I think the idea is to return more than you used. You know what I mean? So because before you go into a situation like that, you're taking energy in your ritual, your preparation. You're taking in the energy. And then when you go in, you expend that energy. And then if you need to, you expend some of your personal energy. Not to the point of being drained to where you can't function. I mean, you still have to function. But that's going to come back. You'll through your own rituals and your cleansings and invocations and things like that, depending on how you believe, you'll receive that energy back. I mean, energy bequeaths energy. So, I think you're right. Sometimes you just got to put out more than what you would have expected, or sometimes more than you can. But everything is energy. So.
Yes. Well, that's why, so often, like right now as I'm talking, I have 2 rocks. I have a quartz, and what was this one again?
That's Argonite.
And
it's grounding.
It's a grounding stone. So I'm constantly fidgeting with them, and from what I understand, they're kind of full of energy. So if I were to go into a situation where I might need extra energy for some reason, I'd probably bring them with me. The grounding one's really good, just so you can ground and center on
and there's great weight to that too.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's a really, for the size of the rock, it's pretty doggone heavy. So yeah, regardless of what you're trying to do, don't be a jerk, don't be an ass. If you have questions, ask them.
Right.
You know, don't try to take energy from someone, especially if you've not asked permission.
Don't be that psychic vampire.
Yeah, I mean those are real.
Mm.
Anybody who's ever been in a crowd
Mhm.
or had a bad boss.
Well, you know,
Um,
or even just a concert, you know, because that energy is just so much energy there, and you're just drained when you're done. You know, you've taken in energy and you've expelled that energy
Mhm.
over and over and over during that time. So
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of energy transference in crowds.
Mhm.
I mean, that's why
and
some
not all of it's
people.
good. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's draining.
It is. And that's why a lot of people don't like crowds. They
I
don't have
just
very
don't like
good
people.
shields, and yeah, I know you're a grouchy old fart. Um,
Mr. Misanthrope.
well, you just need to make the beard, more pointy and sticking out to, lead the way, so people want to avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. It'll get so long that I'll be able to use it as a hoop around me
There
for
you
my
go.
18 inches. Yeah, yeah. This is my space. You're
So-
so weird.
I know. It's fun.
But
So-
I think you're right. I think the left-hand path and the right-hand path need to be blended to create a better place for you, your spirituality, and everybody around you.
Mhm.
So
It's just the
yeah.
path.
it's just the path. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
I generally see a life is an adventure.
Mhm.
I've said that on more than one occasion. And, just like any adventure, there's ups and downs and loop-de-loops and turns and swamps and mountain vistas. And as you're journeying on your own personal path, you're going to
Right.
be going up and down. You're going to get curves. You're going to slip and fall on the ice. It's going to happen. And, since it is just your path, sometimes you're going to need to stop and, fix yourself, because when you slipped and fell on the ice, you broke your leg. And sometimes you need to, put the energy out there to help someone that you've crossed paths
Right.
with.
Well, now also, gosh, this mic is just uncomfortable for me right now.
It's because I'm sitting in your seat.
That's true. Okay. Also, you've talked about, people have, and I've heard you talk to people that talk about this, and it's like, what was it? Somebody said, have you worked on you have to work on your left-hand path? Have you done the left-hand
Oh, the
path?
shadow work.
Shadow work, yes.
Mhm.
Have you done the shadow work to reveal your true self and discover those demons that were hidden within, or whatever that may
Mhm.
be? I don't. I think you don't necessarily have to work on that specifically. I think, and this is kind of a left-hand path in my view. It's like journeying down that darkened path to face your fears. Okay, I can understand that. Yeah, working through your fears and things that are hidden in your psyche and this, that, and the other. But I think these things come up in our daily lives. The other day, somebody said, "Oh, dude, there's like a Bigfoot behind your house." It's like, what? No, no. And so it's one of those things. It's like, well, what are you scared of? And it's like, well, if that's a fact, I don't want to go out and face potentially 10-foot big, hominid, that kind of thing. But it's one of those things. It's one of those fears, whether it be primal or physical or things like that. But I think these are things that we work on a daily basis. Your fears will be revealed to you on a daily basis, and you got to work on them right then, really. But I don't think it's something you have to travel down and face all at one time.
Well, no, shadow work is generally something that you're doing. It's a process rather than a single event. And shadow work is generally considered bad, negative, left-hand path stuff. But
Right.
because it's like, ooh, shadow work.
But
and that's
it's
the
everyday's trials.
It is, and it's like often growing up, we inherit baggage from our family.
Hmm.
It's just the way of it. And even if you're a white woman that's relatively straight, I get baggage. It came from my family. There's
Right.
I didn't grow up, with a different lifestyle or different needs, but I still got baggage from my family.
Right.
I have sisters. Trust me, there's baggage, and but there's still things to work on, and some of it, yeah, you do work on in the moment, but some of it you is part of what your meditation is.
Right.
You're working on yourself
Right.
and those things that are internal obstacles. For instance, in high school, I couldn't talk to a crowd of people to save my life. I couldn't sit and talk to a group of more than 4 people without sweaty palms, talking too fast. I mean, and being incoherent and not being able to communicate in high school. Period. No. And nowadays, that's not really true anymore. It's something that I had to work on myself and realize that, most of the people I'm talking to, the odds of me bumping into them are pretty remote, unless,
Right.
They're local listeners. The odds of me actually getting to Australia or Germany are pretty low
Well,
right
but
now.
also think about the
but-
time that you were on the news, talking to the newscaster, out on location, you've been on TV like at least twice that I can think
Yeah,
of,
2 or 3 times.
local TV, but still, you've
We've got a million people in our area.
and you knew you were talking to all these people that tune in at 6, for the newest news, so you've done. I've seen that happen with you, so I know that you can do it.
Well, and it took actually one of those interviews to really make me click. Because, if I can sit here and talk to a camera,
Right.
knowing that there's the potential of a million people
Yeah,
seeing
but that's
this.
different than looking out at a crowd and imagining them all naked.
There's a lot of people that I don't need to see naked. Just, no. No. Mm-mm.
Right. Cameron says, from what I understand about shadow work, it's more like self-therapy than anything my therapist agrees from what I've told her. So, yeah, I do. I absolutely agree. It's self-therapy. It's self-care, that kind
It's
of thing.
self-work.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with acknowledging that you have a fear.
But there's a lot of people when they say it's the stigma of the idea of shadow work. And there's a lot of people in the community who
They would benefit.
portray it that way. No,
Yeah.
they portray it
Yes.
that way. It's like, oh, it's so dark and you've got to do this and you've got demons and it's but you're going back to that Christian ideologies, those dogmas, and it's like it's the iniquities of the father that are burdens to the sons. So say, and that's what the Bible says. The iniquities of the father are the sins of the sons. And what that basically means is the stuff that your generations before you carried around, or what their bad intentions were, is part of your bad intention or part of your demons.
Your family karma.
Right, and that's when you ask for deliverance. That's when you're supposed to ask for deliverance. And then the Holy Spirit purges it out of you and blah, 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 blah. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that baggage, or we're talking about those things that we've developed that scare ourselves. We're running out of time. But
Yeah, we
yes,
got 3
therapy,
minutes.
yeah.
So therapy's good.
Yeah.
And I think shadow work is really good to do with therapy.
They perpetuate it.
Yeah. So if you're doing both, therapy and shadow work, I think that's a great thing. Because your therapist is going to give you things to talk about or work on your own. And basically that is shadow work. It's
Right.
just guided shadow work
Right,
instead
exactly.
of self-shadow work.
Right.
And sometimes that's what you need.
And once again, that's neither here nor there. It's neither left or right. It's your path.
It just is.
It's what your path has brought you to.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Yeah. So
My 3 cents.
your 3 cents. So yes, left-hand path, right-hand path. For me, my interpretation,
No
it is the
difference.
path.
Right.
Just like I have a left hand and a right hand. I have 2 hands.
Mhm.
A left foot, right foot. Sometimes the left foot is more dominant
It's
than the right foot.
it's the
but
duality of everything.
Absolutely.
So.
Black magic, white magic, gray magic. The energy you put into it, the intention that you want, or that you are trying to achieve, the goals of whatever ritual or casting or
Mhm.
whatever it is you're trying to do. That's what you're going to get out of it.
Right. Cool.
100%.
Thanks for letting me crash your party.
Hey, no worries. It'd be okay. I could always throw rocks at you, I guess.
Well, yeah, that one would hurt. Oh, that one no.
Oh no,
that
this one would
disappeared.
hurt.
Yeah, that would hurt. I was thinking of the Argonite though.
They both would. One's a little more pointy.
Yeah, the
So,
Argonite's a lot more
anyways,
pointy.
any questions, concerns, thoughts, comments, absolutely send me an email. It's wildpaisley@gmail.com. WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. You can also go to the website. It's thespacesbetween.live, and I do have a contact Paisley section in there. So if you have something you want to talk to me about, by all means, drop it in there, and I'll address it. And I love getting emails.
I'm going to drop my email too.
Okay.
Just in case, because I know Cam's here, and I know Cam
Hi, Cam.
watches our show, and then Pam is here. Pam is here. But if you want to contact me, if you have any questions, you can contact me at aetherarchives@gmail.com. That's AETHERARCHIVES@gmail.com. Thank you, Paisley.
I'm impressed that you could spell that.
Well, I've been spelling it for a long time.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining. Stay tuned for Ken.
Duke's on.
Duke's up next on TFR.
World Bigfoot Radio.
Yep. So we will see you next Friday here on the Spaces Between. So merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. And thanks for joining.
Bye.
O Lord, within the sun, as we will